Hello everyone, my name is Winslin Quisado and today I will be your presenter as I'm going to present with you the reflection in practice and practical consideration in the development of English for academic and specific purposes materials in Hong Kong. And it is the study of Ken Lo, the University of Hong Kong. Hong Kong is SAR, China. So before we proceed with our discussions, let's have first our objectives. So at the end of this lesson, you should be able to first understand the reflective practices. Second, you should be able to understand the materials development. And third, you should be able to understand English for academic purposes, English for specific purposes. So before we talk about deeper of these discussions about this paper, let's first understand the context of this presentation before we go deeper to this discussion. So this paper focused on the views of 26 pre-service and 8 in-service teachers, English teachers in Hong Kong concerning the information technology courses in their teacher education program. So the findings of the study show that while both software application and technological integration in teaching are highlighted in the course outline, the instructor focused on the applications aspect, with the technology integration being less emphasized. And another important finding is that PowerPoint is still the most commonly used application in teaching. Likewise, usually the involved pre-service and in-service teachers just simply use different computers applications as alternative to traditional teaching resources. So this may reflect that the fact that the information technology courses are not adequate to prepare teachers to teach with it. So according to Ken Lo 2013, the ability to reflect in actions taken or decisions made in a split second or post-mortem is a defining characteristic of professional practice. It means that the adaptations of reflective practices is the basis of professional preparation and growth in fields as diverse as health science, social work, and teaching. However, although there are abundant studies on the applications and outcomes of integration reflection into professional training programs, relatively little attention has so far been paid to its relevance and value for language enhancement. So, in this chapter, we will talk it out the methods for integrating reflection and development for English enhancement courses, and of course illustrate these methods with examples from courses offered by the for Applied English Studies at the University of Hong Kong. So the reflection project on students focus on understanding students' perceptions of reflection in English enhancement. The reflection project on teachers solicited teachers' views on the integration of reflection into English courses with a particular focus placed on the challenges of assessing and evaluating reflection. It means that understanding how students view reflection as a means of improving their English was the main goal of the reflection project on students, and with a particular emphasis on the difficulties of assessing and evaluating reflection. On the reflection project on teachers sought teachers' opinion on the integration of reflection into English courses. Center for Applied English Studies. So the major role of CAES is to offer English enhancement and academic literacy courses to all of the undergraduates in the university. So the center enrolls around 9,000 students every year. Each course is developed by a coordinator or a course team and delivered by teachers who may or may not have participated in the course development process. Next is the University of Hong Kong. The SKU, Hong Kong University students are normally required to take 2 CAES courses as part of their graduation requirements. So, except for the foundational English course, which focuses on the generic linguistic skills required of university students. All of the other courses are discipline-specific, targeting the particular language needs of the student's academic and professional fields. So, for example, low-degree students are required to take a legal essay course, whereas journalism students take a course focusing on genres such as the hard news, story and non-fiction narratives. So the teaching practice is very much research informed. The reflection related projects provided useful insights into the why, what, when, and most importantly, the how of integrating reflection into the courses. So taking the academic year 2012 to 2013 as an example, out of the 47 English courses offered to our undergraduate students, nearly half of them, 20 courses, had reflection integrated into the course in one form or another. The widespread presence of reflection provides sufficient grounds for identifying good practices and challenges. So our teaching practice is very much research informed because it provides useful insights like what I said, the why, what, when, and most importantly, the how, integrating reflection into courses. So in the RPS project, participants were asked to respond to two questionnaires, one at the beginning and one at the end of the course that had a reflection components to trace their perceptual changes, if any. The response rates for the pre and post-course questionnaire survey were around 50% and 35% respectively. And next is rationally behind reflection. So what is rationally behind reflection? So in research, it means it is a reflection aims at understanding the forms of intelligibility by which the world is made meaningful. In the heuristic context of the research work, reflecting means to elucidate the epistemic acts developed in the midst of inquiry process. So, to provide it being seen as merely add-on or something that has to be done for the purpose of assessment, the justification for the integration of reflection need to be made clear to students and teachers, especially those with little or no experience, according to Sanders 2009 as cited in Stokes and Well and in 2013. So, although the instrumental value of reflection for learning has generally been recognized, it is risky for materials developers to simply assume that inserting reflective activities necessarily results in performance improvements. A lack of clarity not only undermines the potential benefits but threatens the validity of assessment. Therefore, like Sanders 2009 as cited in Stokes and Well 2010, therefore the fact about behind the introduction of reflection need to be articulated clearly to students and teachers because it is necessary to perceive as merely a bolt-on extra and something that has to be done for the purpose of assessment. That's according to Sanders and 2009. And next, according to Samway 2006, page 126, states that reflections can give teachers insight into a multitude of important issues that may be related to subject knowledge, classroom dynamics, the learning process, and assessment. However, this concern must be placed in wider context in relation to English improvement. More specifically, how reflection can be leveraged and exploited to achieve specific goals of language enhancement should be made explicit. Ideally, we would like to see signs that students are making generalizations and are able to transfer the skills to other relevant contexts, as shown in this extract from post-course interview with an RPS interviews That's according to Lau 2013. So according to Lau, as he quoted, he said that I think that this is a learning process. If you want to improve, of course you cannot just look forward. You need to look back so that I can recognize the problem and find any way to improve. Because I because I should be the master of my learning and only I know myself best. So at the very least, there should be an indication that the participants understand the relevance of reflection for English enhancement, as it's seen in the following quotation from one of the RPS interviews. Because of the reflection is what helps you to understand yourself more, because you have done your preparation, you have done 100%, and you think your presentation is the best. But some other people may think that you have some other areas to improve. Therefore, reflection is useful for yourself to improve. That's according to Lau. So a dichotomy, reflections as process versus reflections as product. So over the years, there have been various attempts to characterize the nature of reflection. So John 1983 popularized the concepts of reflection in action and reflection in action. Simply put, reflection in action occurs while performing an individual activity or task and the effects is immediate. So Sean works was based on the premise that keywords introduced in professional preparations are not sufficient for dealing with real-life practices, which is often messy and interminate. Professionals constantly evaluate and re-evaluate solutions and apply creative solutions to problems in a way that complements the objective and scientifically based on the technical rationality. Ano. So he also adds that intended for long-term benefits and improvements, reflection and action occurs after the completion of activity or task, according to Gay 2010. 2010. Subsequent research expanded on these concepts and came up with another relevant terms such as reflection for action and reflection and what do you, and reflection with action. So next is that despite with the range of existing terms, the best way to conceptualize the nature of reflection in our courses appears to be considered it as dichotomy, like for example, reflection as process versus reflections as product, according to Salmon 2006. So this distinction is crucial, particularly in our case as it has implication for the design and implementation of reflection materials. Reflections as products suggest that reflections is one of actions. Some of our courses require students to reflect on their project or course learning experiences, usually towards the end of the semester. So, for example, social science students who take a professional communications course are required to reflect on their interviews with professionals and to consider how the experiences may affect their future career goals. In contrast, reflections as process encompasses multiple reflection opportunities over the length of course and the effects of reflection on subsequent tasks. And the second example is one of our technical communication courses of engineering students. Course participants have to deliver these three technical presentation over a 12-week period. So in addition to the on-the-spot presentation performance, students are required to reflect on their strengths and weaknesses and look for the ways to improve their next presentation. So the multiple loops that connect the past with the future are a characteristic of reflection as process. And next we have modality of reflection. Another consideration is the modality of reflection. So, reflection, reified as writing, has been the most common modality. So, journals, diaries, essays, and records, logs are the common forms of written reflections. However, other modalities of reflections are available and are growing in importance, according to Mantel 2010. And next is verbal reflections provide opportunities for others to probe a prompt for deeper and more critical reflection. And reflection which extends the modality continuum even further can be ratified in a diagrammatic form in which students use their creativity to realize their thoughts through visual graphics. And last is the choice of modality reflections depends very much on the nature of the course and the anticipated outcomes. It means that we should recognize the merits and limitations of each of these modalities of reflection. For example, written reflections provide more substantial evidence of students' though processes but lack the immediate sounding board provided by verbal reflections. And also drawing-based reflections overcome the limitations of linear thought processes and allow multiple perspectives to be presented as the coherent whole, and yet if this is built into the materials, time needs to be set aside for a dialogic communications or presentation. And next is we have input for reflection. So the two common tasks according to Illis 2002, the first one is self-explanatory and does not require much illustration. So consciousness raising activities which are frequently used in grammar instruction can be used to introduce students to reflective thinking by giving them the chance to generalize guidelines for what makes a good reflection. And next is, let's have the example of this um, reflection. So example 1 is, let's call it reflection lag A. So reflection lag A, I watched one of the clips about reinventing the school lunch presented by Ann Cooper. I watched the clip 2 times from the beginning to the end, and then I focused attention on the part in which the presenter added her personal experiences to the presentation using strong links and transition between points and sentences. I then jotted down the usual phrases used to signal transition and will use the relevant ones in my next presentation. So the explanation of the reflection lag A is that reflection lag A is not at all critical, as the writers merely describe what action he or she want to take. So the second example of reflection lag B is that I realized that good presenters have clear transitions between points. They make use of intonation to signal transition between points. However, in the presentation I did before, I only read the materials written on the PowerPoint slides without attempting to signal a transition from one point to another. I relied very heavily on reading from the PowerPoint slides, and so I wasn't able to present the details as they were listed in the slides. I also become more aware of the fact that strong transitions between points would make the whole presentation atmosphere more interesting. It can draw the audience attentions. I believe that this is what professional presenters should do. After watching those video clips, I understood that I should not write the whole script on paper. I have learned useful skills from these professional speakers' delivery of their presentation. These are the skills that I need to learn and imitate in my future presentations. So in reflection lag B, the explanation of this one is that reflection lag B is much better reflection showing the connection between reviewing the past action, explaining for and past action and planning for the future. And the third example is the reflection lag C. So reflection lag C, I believe a reason why I wasn't able to establish audience rapport is my lack of eye contact. On website on public speaking tips, it says that by making eye contact, I will be able to relate to my students, which will help to get my message across. It suggests that I may also nod occasionally. If I get nods back, it shows that the person may agree with what I have just said. Personally, I believe the audience gets bored if my presentations is very systematic and robotic. I think it will help if I smile more. By smiling, I will make the audience more relaxed and it allows them to be more engaged with my presentation. In addition to further establish audience rapport and maintain audience interest, I need to create a more conversational style for my individual presentations by more conversational. I will use more phrases like "Have you wondered?" and "Why do you think so?" etc. In other words, I can try to put myself in the positions of the audience and perhaps imagine what they are thinking. By doing so, there will be more connections between the audience and me. So the explanation of the lag say is that um, what you call this? So according to reflection lag C, goes even further by specifying the strategies to be adapted in the next presentation based on the options available and the weakness identified in the previous performance. The criticality is also shaped by the writer's own critical dialogues leading to his or her own clarifications such as by more conversational, in other words, and the presence of evaluative adjectives such as systematic and robotic, which uh, imply self-appraisal. And next, we have assessment of reflection. The question of to be or not to be is recurring theme in the evaluation of reflection. So most common concern about assessing reflection stem from the task subjective nature which appears to contradict traditional epistemology beliefs about assessment as object and passivistic according to Stewart and Richardson 2000. And next is Diamond and O'Connell 2011. They proposed a method to assess the quality of reflection with varying degrees for intercoder reliability. So these frameworks have been developed mainly for students taking content disciplinary subjects and they do not entirely fit for our context. So, however, many of those who believe that reflection should be assessed have devised robust frameworks for assessing reflections. 3 to 7 levels of reflections have been proposed to assess the quality of reflections with various degrees of intercoder reliability according to Diamond O'Connell. And next is we have cannot assess the content. That means when you assess students' reflective writing, you only focus on the language, not the content. The complications came down to a very basic yet fundamental questions. What are we assessing when we assess students' reflections? So what do you call this? So to answer this question, it is useful to conceptualize the assessment of reflections as a continuum with reflective genre at one end and reflective practices at the other. And next is so reflective genre assessment focus on the on the different modalities and how will students master the language of reflection. So according to Gay 2010, reflective practices help us understand the connections between what we do and how we can improve our effectiveness. So, so in practical terms, students should be given chances to demonstrate how they progress by such means as multiple drafting of essays or recycling of skills taught, such as oral presentation skills. So next is we have the conclusion. So although many academics and researchers value the fluid, subjective, and dynamic natures of reflective, but some of them view it as having inherent limitations that could undermine its usefulness as a learning resources. So in this chapter, we have highlighted a number of practical considerations that are crucial to the integrations of reflection into English enhancement materials. So the rationales behind the integrations, the nature and the modalities of reflections, the inputs that facilitates reflections, and the assessment of reflections, if we may view, make the materials more robust while at the same time strengthen the potential for successful language enhancement in our context. And next, thank you, and that will be all. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me. Thank you.